Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? My name is Tony Rizzondo, and you are listening to another episode of the world famous, the University Love, the best podcast in 1, 2, 3 galaxies. But, ladies and gentlemen, we just call this show Online Marketing Moves, and we are coming to you live today. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 episodes in 6 months. We we're record we're on a record pace. Okay. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what. These last few months have been pretty hectic, but you know, in April we're gonna get this thing rocking and rolling, and we're gonna get back to what we know and what we love. Listen, I love doing the show, and but sometimes what did my cousin say last week? He said, "What's going on with the show?" I said, "Hey man, life." He said, "Life is life," and I said it's like that sometimes. When you don't have a full staff yet, it bees like that. When you don't have the Spotify, Spotify has not given me $100 million deal yet. So we still have to work. We still have to work a full-time job and all that. We got the new baby on the way, and I started trying to. I started training people in the truck. That's been a whole headache. I didn't realize how time consuming that was. I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, things have changed. Um, things have changed in the trucking industry since I started driving. I tell you what, I remember the first time I decided to train people. It went pretty well. The people, they were nice. They were lovely people. This go around, it's been one headache after another, and I'll tell you what, after dealing with them for hours on hours every day, I've been too exhausted to even think about trying to record and talk to you and be entertaining and be funny and you know be charming and be witty and be all that. It just hasn't been there. But I promise you, nah, I can't make no promise. Nah, you know what? I can't make a promise. Uh, in April, we're gonna get to getting, and we're gonna get back to our regular schedule program that we had before October of 2025. Okay. Yeah, before that we was doing great. We was 900 something episodes. We don't slow down so much. We should already be at 1,000, but we're still at like 970 something episodes. But that's neither here nor there. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about something. Today I want to talk to you about pure greediness, okay? Pure greediness. And I had a conversation yesterday with my homeboy, Slick Rick. And me and Slick Rick got to talking, and we Slick Rick, he lives in California, and he's been fascinated because ladies and gentlemen, we all get fascinated about something. Everybody gets fascinated about something or someone. And so, my friend, the Slickster, he's been keeping me informed about this. It was a company. It was a restaurant called Destination Smokehouse, and they had a guy. He started doing something called He started doing a little dance, and he would pull out the meat, and the meat would be tender, and he'd say tenderism, and and apparently that swept the nation. Well, that swept some parts of the nation, but he became a viral sensation, and he worked there. And then people were like, "Oh, he don't own the restaurant." Da, 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 da. And my friend Ricky, he was keeping me posted. So then we got to talking, and I said, when is he gonna open up a restaurant? And and my friend Ricky said, I don't know, but he said, but you know who decided to open up a restaurant and display it at the Houston Rodeo? I said, who? And he said, Mama Tina. And I said, who? And he said, Beyonce mom. And I said, oh. And apparently Beyonce mom decided that she's in the gumbo business. Now, I don't know about you people, but gumbo is the interesting thing because there are so many. there's so many ways you can make gumbo. There's so many avenues you can go down with gumbo. Listen, listen. If you don't know what gumbo is, look it up, okay? But gumbo is kind of like a soup, you know. It's like a hearty soup, you know. And soup, I listen. Man, I love chicken noodle soup and beef stew, and so I like a soup now. You know, don't get me wrong, but gumbo, I had gumbo one time when when I went to truck driving school. Way back in the day, I knew a guy. He was from Louisiana. Gmo, as we called him. Gmo made gumbo. He was in that kitchen for like a few hours, and Gmo was in the cussing up a storm and drinking natural light and cooking gumbo. And Gmo sounded like Pepe Le Pew, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't know if you know the Pepe Le Pew cartoons, but so gumbo is an interesting thing, you know. So gumbo, it can be made, you know, different ways. People had different things. I had a friend. He said he went to somebody's house. They made gumbo. They put potato salad in the gumbo. I said that's interesting. And then looked online. There was a debate. Potato salad in the gumbo. Some said on the side. Some said in the gumbo. Some people said no way. So gumbo, gumbo, gumbo. But I say all this about gumbo, and you're welcome, by the way, your history lesson on gumbo. But I say all this, you know, to say, Tina knows Beyonce mom. She decided that hey, she's gonna be in the gumbo business, and so you know, people at the Houston rodeo, which apparently is a big deal. Um, but people were going up there. Now, let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna ask you personally, you, if you see a celebrity like somebody's, well, I don't know, is she I guess she's a celebrity, I guess, you know. So this is you know, Beyonce's mom. Tina knows, you know, she's she managed Beyonce or what, did whatever, costume changes, hair design, whatever, man, I don't know. You know, I'm not in the Beyonce business, so I don't know. But so she's, you know, but for 30 years, these people have been kind of, you know, famous or rich or whatever, you know. So I thought to myself, why would I eat anything that she cooks? And I'm like, nah, she probably don't cook. But people, they were running up to the line. So I want to ask you, would you, if you was walking through the Houston rodeo and they got all this food at the Houston rodeo, you know, Texas, they got barbecue, they got all this pizzazz, all this jazz. If you're walking all up and down the Houston rodeo, would you stop by? And if you was a fan of gumbo, would you stop by and be like, "Ooh, this is what I want, Mama Tina's gumbo"? Me personally, I would keep walking, but that's just me, okay? Um, but people were stopping by. I saw some lady. She's like, "I'm from New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans, baby. So I gotta try this gumbo." And I was like, and man, content over everything these days, okay, people. But I'm like, nah, I wouldn't do it. She got the gumbo. She complained, you know. She like, look how soupy it look. Then they said they had more people went out there to try the gumbo. More people claim they got sick from eating the gumbo. Why? Why you keep going up here? This is the mental illness that we have, ladies and gentlemen, in this society. Content over everything. And so instead of them just being like, you know what? We're gonna ignore this gumbo stand. We're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep it moving. No, 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 people. More and more people decided we are going to go try this gumbo out. And then the price of the gumbo. Soup is not supposed to be expensive. You know, this is why people make soup. You know why I make soup, ladies and gentlemen? I make chicken noodle soup because I can make this soup for under probably $15. And I can have the soup for 3 days. Okay. And I make my chicken noodle soup, I make my cornbread, and then for the 3 days, you know, I can eat. I make a big old bowl, lunch, dinner, chicken noodle soup. Lunch, dinner, chicken noodle soup. Lunch, dinner, chicken noodle soup. And you know, my wife said I have the great ability. I can eat the same thing 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row. Okay, it doesn't matter to me. But I say all this to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, if you saw a stand or something that you liked, and you know how much normally you would pay for it, this, that, and the third. Why? Just because it's a celebrity. Why do you go up there and give it the attention that it don't deserve? Okay. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, we get into the world and we give things that don't deserve attention. Okay. We've all been guilty of this. We all have to step away, get away, and focus on the things that we need to do. We all get into this habit of you worry about celebrity, you worry about this, you worry about that, you worry about gossip, you worry about who's sleeping with who. We gotta focus on ourselves. You gotta take care of yourself. You gotta take care of each other. You gotta take care of you. If you look nowadays, you see the TSA workers, you feel bad for them. I personally would quit. This administration is terrible. It's god awful, man, god awful. You know, I would say that's an opinion, but it's looking like a fact. Okay. Um, the TSA people. This is why you gotta. This is why you gotta make sure that you got your ducks in a row. This is why you gotta focus less on the celebrity of life, the celebrity, and you gotta focus on self. Because I hope those people have money saved up. I hope those people have other things that they can lean back on. Yeah, you can't depend on the job. You have to till your own garden at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So we're gonna focus a lot on that in the upcoming months. Tilling our own garden, figure out what we can do to make money, figure out what we can do to really focus on you and the task at hand. We got to get you paid, whether you invest, whether you do real estate, and it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be, we have to get off the mindset of you need to make $20 million, $1 billion. No, you need enough to you want to get to the point where you got something coming in that can cover your bills, just in case your job does fall apart. You're generating money some way, some kind of way, somehow. You're generating money that, hey man, the lights aren't going to get turned off, the mortgage can get paid. You want to get to that point in life. When you get to that point in life, you are already rich. Okay, it doesn't all that other stuff, the Gary V's of the world, the hustle, 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 the greed. You don't have to be greedy. You don't have to charge $30 for a cup of gum. You don't have to charge $30 for a cup of gumbo. You don't have to be a scammer. You don't have to sell dope. There are so many legal ways that you can make money. There are so many legal ways that we will get into of how to make money, how to leverage yourself, multiply yourself, build up a brand, build up a business. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, I know I did an episode February about the Super Bowl, and then we went radio dark. But after April the 1st, and this is not an April Fool's joke, we will not go radio dark. All right. And so, don't buy gumbo from everybody. Don't buy every celebrity product that they come out with, ladies and gentlemen, because some of it is pure trash. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back tomorrow with the all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. But until then, my name is Tony Rizzano. Thank you for listening. God bless each and every one of you. I love you. I appreciate you for listening. Those that used to listen, you can come back. We're not going nowhere after April. I promise you. I know I said that in the past, but we mean it this time because I do not lie. Okay. I pray to the Lord. I said, Lord, do not make me out to be a liar. All right. But I love you and I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Um, and yeah, until tomorrow. As always, everybody, peace.